4.5 million dogs are diagnosed with cancer each year. I think 80 to 90% of dogs will get some form of periodontal disease by the age of 3. I mean, these are not normal statistics.
Wow.
Like accepted them like, oh yes, that's just what happens with dogs, or like, this is
Yeah.
how they live. And it's like, this isn't, we have to, it's not only the food, but the food is a huge, huge part.
Welcome to Biohacking with Brittany, where high performance health meets non-toxic living. I'm Brittany Ford, a holistic nutritionist, bringing you science-backed strategies in biohacking, longevity, and holistic wellness. Whether you're navigating fertility, pregnancy, postpartum, or simply striving for optimal well-being, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hello, beautiful people. I am thrilled that you are joining this podcast episode today. We are going to be diving into all things raw food for our dogs. And this is something I haven't talked about a lot on the show, but I am super excited to dive into the diet and nutrition of dogs and pets and animals and why it's so important. And honestly, something that a lot of people just overlook. So I was lucky to have Amy on the show, who is the co-founder and CEO of We Feed Raw, which is actually one of the fastest growing, or is the fastest growing raw dog food companies in the US, which is wild. This was such a cool episode. Like, as a fellow dog mom, I really enjoyed just diving into this and kind of looking at the kibble industry and how it's processed food for animals and what it means for dogs' health and inflammation. And we even get into like biohacking for our dogs and what we can really do about, really elevating their health and helping to keep them healthy for a long time. So if you have a dog, if you have a pet, this is definitely for you. You're going to get a lot out of it. You are going to learn a lot, and you are probably going to want to try raw dog food if you haven't yet. I strongly suggest you do so. We Feed Raw will be linked right in the show notes for you to get super easily to check out. Really smart. They even do a subscription, which is awesome, right to your house. I love that. Makes it so easy to be able to have healthy food and not have to overthink it, over-organize, or even over-worry about it. So enjoy this podcast episode. Before we dive in, a shout out to Biooptimizers. They have the best digestive enzymes on the market. This is actually one of the products that they are known for worldwide. So digestive enzymes really help us digest our food easier. They're like cofactors, co-regulators, whatever you want to call them. And essentially, they just help break down our food in our digestive system and make it so it's less of a burden on our overworked systems a lot of the time, especially if you're someone who is sensitive to lactose, gluten, or soy, or any of these other proteins. It can really reduce the negative reaction that you might have to that. So for example, whenever I eat anything that is kind of out of the whole foods bracket or primal or paleo bracket, I will have a bunch of digestive enzymes. And honestly, I will have like 5 or 6 with the meal. And it makes a big difference. So I don't get bloated. I don't get gassy. I don't have weird bowel movements the next day. It doesn't show up in my skin. It just kind of mitigates the harmful effects that can often occur when we overindulge. And that's how I use it. And it works really well for me. And actually, what's really interesting is my older brother loves digestive enzymes. I got him hooked on these from Biooptimizers, and now he tells everybody about them. And then they get hooks on it as well. And they're like, wow, I had no idea that digestion could be this comfortable, even if I'm eating like pizza. And I'm like, yeah, it's great. It's not an excuse to obviously eat that way, but it definitely does help. So if you're somebody who is having a lot of digestive issues, you need digestive enzymes in your back pocket. Like, this is a staple. I have talked about it for like 2 years, okay? You need a bottle in your car, in your pantry, in your supplement box, at your desk at work, because, whenever you're going to have a little indulgence, this might be something that you are wanting to turn to. Check it out. You can go to biooptimizers.com/biohackingbrittany. Use my discount code biohackingbrittany in all capitals. It will get you 10% off. Actually gets you 10% off of every single thing that they sell. So really great, and will save you a lot. strongly recommend. I literally have my whole family on all of it. And a shout out to Novus. You guys love Novus. Novus is changing the game when it comes to longevity. So they have created this drink that targets all 12 causes of aging in one supplement. And it tastes so good. I just talked about this on my Instagram stories. You get to work on your longevity long term, but you also get to work on your energy right there in the moment. It makes me feel better right away. Like, it is a pick me up, and I'm here for it. Strongly suggest it. Strongly suggest it. If you're somebody who cares about longevity, you want to feel good, but you also don't want to age any faster. Potentially, you even want to reverse some aging. Novus is for you. I know so many people love it. And they're just really making waves in the longevity and anti-aging space. And they're one of the best biohacking companies that I've seen on the market. So check them out. I will link it in the show notes. You can use my discount code BiohackingBrittany and save. I strongly suggest you use it. Helps to save where you can, you know what I mean? And I promise you, you will feel a difference right in the moment. And you're also helping your cellular health, your mitochondria, your longevity long-term as well. So check it out and enjoy this episode about raw dog food. I know you're going to learn a lot. If you have any questions, you want to be featured on my Ask Me Anything episodes, which come out every Friday, send me a question on Instagram at BiohackingBrittany, and I would love to help you out. Otherwise, enjoy the show, and I will catch you soon for another one. Welcome back to Biohacking with Brittany. Thank you for tuning into today's episode. Today, we are diving into raw food for your pets and pet and dog and cat and all types of animals longevity. I'm super excited about this episode. I actually haven't done a solo episode on this topic. And as someone who is a dog mom of a golden retriever for 4 years, this is definitely near and dear to my heart, especially when I went through my own journey of kind of figuring out what to feed him to help him be as healthy as possible. So joining me is the co-founder and the CEO of We Feed Raw, which is Amy Zalneraitis. I think I said your last name correctly. Ish.
You got it right. I'm actually not the CEO, though. I'm the CBO.
Oh my goodness.
That's okay. No, people can make that mistake all the time. We have an amazing CEO who's also named Amy, but not me. So I'm, yes, co-founder and chief brand officer. Actually.
Okay. Yeah. Well, equally as important, and a co-founder, which is like very, very cool. And I'm just so thankful that you're joining the show, because I just really want to pick your brain about raw food and everything in that space.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So can you kind of share the story behind We Feed Raw and what even led you to deciding, hey, this is something that I actually want to put my time and effort into creating?
Yeah, it's a really interesting story, actually. I never set out to have this job or applied for this job or, had a big dream to create this company. This was actually my younger sister, Alyssa's company. And she was a big animal lover. We're both big animal lovers. We were raised by parents who were always rescuing animals. Mm-hmm. So we were just sort of taught that if you're a good person, you're not only kind to people, but you're kind to animals as well. I also think it's just part of our DNA. I always say, like, it's in our blood. We come from a long lineage of animal lovers and rescuers. So my sister grew up to be this big animal rescuer. She even had, I think 10 dogs at one point. So she just was really passionate about helping dogs, particularly. And I always say the seed was planted around 2007. There was a big recall in pet food in the US. I don't know if you remember this or have heard of this, but it had to do with contaminated wheat gluten. Mm. And what happened was there was a Chinese manufacturer that was selling wheat gluten as a protein source to US pet food companies. And to artificially boost the protein levels in the wheat gluten, they added something called melamine, which is this industrial chemical. So it ended up in the pet food supply, and it killed and made sick thousands of cats and dogs. And it was really big news and made headlines. And it really kind of marked this shift, I think, in people thinking more critically about what they were putting in their pets' bowls. For a long time, it was just and still to this day, but Kibble is just like the only choice, the best,
Yeah.
the safest choice. So, my sister didn't have a dog that was affected by this, but she herself was just felt really, it just hit her hard. And so she started to think about how she could improve her own dog's diet.
Mm.
Learned a lot. She just dove into, studying raw diets and how to make her own. And she became this expert. And so she started making her dogs these amazing raw meals, and she
Mm.
saw the results really quickly, improved skin and health, like better digestion, better weight management, better energy levels. And so as she did this, she started making raw meals for her friends' dogs and then friends of friends' dogs, as a lot of these sort of passion companies start, like that. It's just
Yeah.
like that age old story. And so that's how it just grew organically. She never really set out to have a business. The business opportunity presented itself later. So she was living in Austin, Texas with her fiance, Rich, and he was a sushi chef. So he was really good at like making the meals.
Nice.
And she sort of became the business side of it. And they had this nice growing business in Austin, Texas, where they delivered these fresh raw meals door to door. And that went on from about 2009 to 2013. And then in 2013, my sister was young, beautiful, seemingly healthy, but she was diagnosed with late stage colon cancer, like it felt
Whoa.
flu. So we were all just so devastated and gutted. And my family and I are, we're all very close. My sister and I are less than 2 years apart. So we were all living on the East Coast at the time. I was in New York City, my dad was in Maine, and my mom was in Massachusetts. We all decided as a family to move them closer to us so that we could just be a better support system. So at this point in time, my sister moved her business from this like Austin only delivery business to an online Shopify site where she could now serve like all of the US. So I always say it was for this really sad reason, but it helped to grow the company exponentially because now she had this much broader audience that she could serve. And so she continued to work on this business. There was a lot of pain and suffering from like diagnosis to her dying. I think it was about a year and a half. But she worked on this business until the last week of her life. She was really, really passionate about it. And I think, this was her purpose. Like she really came here for the dogs and she really wanted to help them. And so when she did die, my family and I, despite being completely grief stricken, really jumped in quickly to keep the business going because it wasn't the type of business that really could be paused and returned to. It was so hands-on. They had their own facility. Meat was getting delivered. We had production workers. We had, all of these pet owners relying on the food. So I think we thought, it wasn't the type of thing, again, where you could just like let it sit for like, a few months and then come back. So I don't know if it was the grief itself that really sort of forced us to jump in, but we did. I had a full-time job in New York City. The company couldn't afford to pay me, anything yet. So I made this my second job and went back to New York City and did my other full-time job. My dad came out of retirement and sort of run the business side. Rich, my sister's fiance, went back to running the production facility. And we just grew the business like that. I found some outside funding, an angel investor who was a friend, and I used that money to hire a creative agency in Austin, Texas to help create a brand for the business. We had never really been a brand. It was always something else. There was no cohesive sort of look and feel to it.
Yeah.
So we created We Feed Raw. And we've iterated on it since then, but it's still very much the brand today. And I think it's one of the best things that we did after our product. It's still one of our best assets because it allowed us to stand out and gave us credibility. And and then I, eventually quit my full-time job and made this my full-time job. And I've been doing this for about 7 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's such a beautiful story. And I'm honestly so sorry about your sister. I think it's beautiful that you and everyone involved is just carrying on her legacy.
Yeah, it is really like people ask me like, oh, what do you think your sister would feel? I'm like, I know that she would be so thrilled. It's like such a, amazing thing to see, something that she started just out of a love for dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think we've served over 10 million meals throughout over the country. We're the leading player in the direct-to-consumer raw space in the US. So it's just really amazing to be able to have built something that she started into something real. And,
Yeah.
that's actually truly making a difference for so many dogs.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like you guys need to go on Shark Tank. I know this is like such a random thought, but I'm just listening to your story. I was like, I could see this on Shark Tank right now.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing really well, and we have
Yeah.
secured outside funding. That's really, for a long time, it was very bootstrapped, and there were some really tough times. It's a tough
Mm,
business. I mean,
yeah.
this is not an easy business. Shipping raw, frozen meals around the country. It's like every logistical headache you could think of.
Yes.
But we've really gotten to such a great place. Like, we moved from Maine, and now we have multiple manufacturing facilities that are these amazing
Mhm.
best class facilities. We have multiple distribution centers, which was key because we were shipping from like the northeast corner of the country to trying to ship around the country, which was just so hard. So now we get everything to our customers' doorsteps in like 1 to 2 days with free shipping.
Cool.
So it's been a huge challenge, but we are in an amazing place.
Mhm.
So it feels really good. Yeah.
At some point, we've all been sold a big lie, including yours truly. It's called the protein lie. Starting in the 80s, supplement companies began pushing massive protein consumption. We all believed that more protein equaled more muscle growth. And I'm here to tell you that is a big fat lie. So let's say you eat an 8-ounce chicken breast and you're consuming about 40 grams of protein. However, just because something contains 40 grams of protein, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to absorb all 40 grams. Without enzymes, most of it ends up in the toilet bowl. Ouch. This is because your small intestine can only absorb protein that's been broken down into smaller building blocks called amino acids. It doesn't matter if you're consuming 30 grams of protein or 300 grams of protein. If you don't have a sufficient supply of enzymes to digest that protein, your muscles will be starving for those vital building blocks. That's why it's crucial you take a high quality enzyme. Before you run out and buy a bottle of enzymes, you need to know exactly what to look for. The sad truth is most enzymes are of little to no value if you want to build muscle. The hefty costs stop most companies from developing and stabilizing proteolytic enzymes. And so that's why the one that I trust and I use myself and love, and honestly, my whole entire family uses it, is called Mass Enzymes by Bioptimizers. Mass Enzymes is a full spectrum enzyme formula with more protease than any other commercially available, with 5 different kinds of protease. Plus, it contains all the other key enzymes you need for optimal digestion. Mass Enzymes is a full spectrum enzyme formula, and this is my go-to. And you can try it today, risk-free. Their 365-day full money-back guarantee is the gold standard in the industry. So go to bioptimizers.com/biohackingbrittany and use my discount code biohackingbrittany, and you will get 10% off your order. I literally have a bottle of this Mass Enzymes in my car, at work, in my pantry, everywhere. I use it for big meals if I eat anything that's a little out of the ordinary. And it really helps me to feel better in my digestion and also makes me so much happier that I am absorbing my protein and getting the gains that I want. We all want more gains. So check it out and enjoy digesting your protein better. Amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
I'd love to pick your brain on what raw food even means for dogs. I feel like there might be some kind of like misconceptions about it.
Yeah.
Can you explain it in your terms and like what would be included and not included?
Sure. So there's like a few different ways. We have 2 products that we offer. We offer the raw frozen meals, which are roughly 80% muscle meat with connective tissue and fat, roughly 10% organ meat, all of which is secreting organ, and then roughly 10% raw, finely ground raw meaty bones. And then we add a small amount of essential vitamins and trace minerals. And then we also have a freeze-dried raw product, which is a shelf-stable product, but it's still raw. I don't know are you familiar with freeze-dried? Okay. We just launched it, and it's funny how many people are like, this can't be raw, because it looks, it looks like kibble, but nutritionally it's the opposite. But it's basically, you take the raw ingredients and then they are frozen at very low temperatures and then put into this vacuum chamber where the moisture is removed and then you get this shelf stable product, but because it's never heated, it's still raw. So raw diets are really based on what is most natural for dogs. So this is what they've been eating since the beginning of time. This is what they've, throughout evolution have thrived on. It's only recently in 1956, actually, our PhD nutritionist says, a blip in geological time, that they've been eating kibble. So really for most of their time here on Earth, they've been eating a raw meat-based diet and thriving on it. So it's really sort of honoring their biology and their ancestral sort of diet. Yeah.
Yeah. And would that include like vegetables as well, or not really?
We do in our freeze-dried recipes, it's 85% meat and organ. It's caged chicken and grass-fed and grass-finished beef, and then 15% non-GMO fruits and veggies. And then for our frozen raw patties, we just do the meat, organ, and bone. It's still complete imbalanced, but yeah, those are just the meat, organ, and bone. And then the freeze-dried raw is
nice
organ, and then the fruits and veggies.
Yeah. What about the people who are at home who make the food themselves? Like I know someone who she like does cooked rice and cooked squash and chicken, and like it looks like a lot of work. Yeah. Is that raw if it's like got the cooked vegetables and the cooked rice in it? Not really.
Well, I mean, it depends on what she's using for the protein source, and is that raw? But I would say, it's hard with the DIY. This is how this company got started, right? Is like DIY raw feeders. And back when my sister started this company, that's pretty much who raw feeders were, right? But I think that we want to be a resource for people that have no interest, time, energy, space to do it themselves, right? I also think it can be tricky sometimes to make a complete and balanced product where your dog is getting all of the nutrients they need in the correct proportions. Rice, for example, and can dogs have some? Sure, but they don't need that. They don't have a starch requirement. And also you can tend to feed too much. So I would just say more power to you if you can actually do DIY raw at home. Just want to be working with a nutritionist, someone that's actually giving you a plan that ensures that your dog is getting all of the nutrients they need.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And like rice is an incomplete protein, right? So you'd have to like add in the other amino acids to kind of complete that. What about people who feed their dogs like a vegetarian or vegan diet?
Oh gosh, this makes me upset. I mean, dogs are that's not how they're designed. I mean, it's really, I understand why people, they have those views for themselves. And then, the thing about dogs is they're very adaptive creatures. They can survive on a lot of diets, right? Kibble is proof of that. I think that, the wrong diet can appear to work for years, actually, until you start to see problems. Dogs, they really, you even see it if you give them too much plant matter. It just comes out the way it went in. They really cannot digest plant matter in that large an amount. They're facultative carnivores. They are, scavenging carnivores. I know that the, grain-based pet food companies want us to believe that they're omnivores, but they really are facultative carnivores. You can look at their anatomy and see that. Sharp, pointy teeth, short, fast digestive tracts, a high level of hydrochloric acid in their stomach to break down bacteria. I mean, their anatomy shows us that they are meat eaters. So I think forcing a diet on them, like any animal, a lot of experts will tell you all you have to do is look at an animal's biological makeup and it reveals to you what they should be eating. Horses, yes, they need a lot of fiber. They have, these big flat teeth that, the jaws that move side to side. They have the big molars to grind up plant matter. Dogs are built completely differently. So
yeah. It's funny, when we first got our golden retriever about 4 years ago, and we were going through this, and my family used to breed golden retrievers, so I've kind of seen a lot when I was younger. And the vet recommended kibble. The breeder, for some reason, recommended a kibble, but she said if you can find raw, do raw, which was great. And I remember looking at the kibble that the vet recommended, and I think the first ingredient was something like modified wheat starch or modified wheat concentrate. I forgot like the name of it. And then it was maybe like, 6 or 7 ingredients down was where the protein might have been, right? Yeah. And I'm just like, this is all filler. Like this is nothing.
It's nothing. I know. And that really, we do sort of get a lot of pushback from the conventional vet community because I mean, 100% of their nutritional information is coming from big pet food. I just recently, I don't know if you know Dr. Karen Becker. She's like a vet who's a very like one of the sort of leading pro raw vets. She wrote The Forever Dog, but she was just on a podcast recently I was listening to, and she was saying that of all the vet schools in the US are sponsored by big pet food. Like, that's crazy. I mean, there's, so there's definitely I don't think vets I think they're wonderful people, and I think they have intentions and they get into that profession because they truly care about animals. But I think that the nutrition piece of it is flawed because the system is flawed. And I just think they're not educated on biologically appropriate nutrition, right? So I think that's where it gets tricky. But yeah, I mean, Kibble I could go on and on about like why it's not the best, but we work with a really great PhD nutritionist named Dr. Richard Patton. She wrote a book called Ruined by Excess, Perfected by Lack. And it's a really interesting book. He explores the evolutionary design of mammals, specifically canines. And what he talks about is that canines were never built to handle an abundance of calories, especially in the form of soluble carbohydrate. They were sort of built to endure temporary food shortages. Right? This is the way that they've lived throughout evolution, the way that their biologic machinery works. But today, we're like doing the exact opposite. We're feeding them an excess amount of soluble carbohydrate in the form of kibble. We're usually under-exercising them and overfeeding them. So what he says is like we have this central problem where you have an animal that was designed to endure like the very rare blood sugar spike out in nature that now is having to endure constant blood sugar because of the soluble carbohydrate they're being fed. So it's just like a really interesting sort of perspective and an accurate one, right? Like that's why we have these statistics that are showing us that 60% of dogs in the US are obese or overweight. 50% of dogs will get cancer by the age of 10. 4.5 million dogs are diagnosed with cancer each year. I think 80 to 90% of dogs will get some form of periodontal disease by the age of 3. I mean, these are not normal statistics.
Wow.
Like accepted them like, oh yes, that's just what happens with dogs, or like this is how we live. And it's like, this isn't, we have to, it's not only the food, but the food is a huge, huge part.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, it's, I don't want to say it's kind of like humans, but I mean, for humans, like our own statistics aren't looking too great in those realms as well. Obesity and all these chronic illnesses. So,
it's right. It's like if you look at what's happening to us with ultra processed food, kibble is ultra processed food. I'm sure your listeners all are familiar with ultra processed food, but I love just like repeating this definition because it just reminds like ultra processed foods are foods that have been heavily modified through industrial processing that contain ingredients like, emulsifiers, artificial preservatives and flavors, sweeteners. They're usually very low in whole food ingredients and high in sugars, fats, and salts. Kibble is the definition of ultra processed food. So, I think in the US, I'm not sure what the statistic is in Canada, but in the US, the average American, 63% of their calories are coming from ultra processed food. That's such a scary statistic. But for the dogs, for most dogs, it's even scarier because 100% of their calories are coming from ultra processed foods without a break, day after day, meal after meal. So I don't think we should be surprised that we're seeing these statistics when that's what we're feeding them, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you're spot on with it. Let's talk about the fear around raw food. The number one fear that I hear from people is the bacteria. Yes. Does the bacteria in raw food have any merit? Is this something that people should actually be concerned about?
So this is a tricky one because in the US, it's not the same in Canada, but the FDA has a zero tolerance policy for pathogenic bacteria in any pet food. So if you are a raw pet food company, you do need to be using a kill step on your food if you want to scale that business, right? There are plenty of smaller ones that aren't doing it and you can sort of fly under the radar. I think I'll start by saying that dogs are obviously equipped to process raw meat. That is the way that their systems are designed. But there are plenty of dogs. That's a healthy dog. There are plenty of unhealthy dogs in the US. Like if you've been eating a highly processed diet your entire life, your gut microbiome might not be in the best shape. So can that same dog handle a diet with a lot of bacteria in it? We use something called HPP. It's a cold pressurization process that is all natural. So it doesn't use heat, doesn't use chemicals. It doesn't use like any unnatural additives. It uses cool water at high pressure to inactivate E. coli, Salmonella, Listeria,
Right.
even avian flu is another one, viruses. So that's something you have to do as a raw company if you, again, want to scale. I love it as a solution because it allows you to offer a safe product without doing anything to it that affects nutrients. And we've looked at all the studies, and it really does not affect the nutrients. Some studies show that even increases digestibility. So the bacteria one is interesting because even with that step, we still get pushback from the vets. It's like, because a lot of vets don't understand that that's even something that's available to pet food companies. So it's just a blanketed, no, don't feed your dog raw food because make your whole family sick. You're going to make your dog sick. You're going to, put everyone at risk. So it is a nice thing to be able to do. I'm hoping that more vets become educated about it. So
nice. I love that. Imagine waking up each day feeling energized, mentally sharp, and visibly youthful, no matter your age. I've unlocked exactly that with Novus Core, and it's completely upgraded my approach to longevity. Novus Core is the only longevity supplement that targets all 12 key causes of aging, something no other product does. Most supplements only address one or two aspects of aging, but Novus Core is a complete formula designed to work across all the biological pathways of aging in one simple daily drink. Developed by leading longevity experts from Harvard Medical School and MIT, Novus Core is backed by serious scientific research. What makes Novus Core so effective? It's packed with 12 scientifically validated ingredients like fisetin, glycine, calcium alpha, ketoglutarate, and magnesium, each included at scientifically proven doses. These ingredients work together to protect your DNA, help reduce inflammation and cellular senescence, and support stem cell health, effectively slowing aging at its root causes. And here's something even more exciting. You don't have to wait years to feel the difference. 81% of Novus customers report noticeable improvements in their skin, mood, energy, or sleep within just 2 weeks, with even greater benefits accumulating over time. Since incorporating Novus Core, I've experienced incredible boosts in my energy, honestly, like right away when I'm drinking it, improved sleep, sharper cognition, and balanced moods, and even visibly healthier skin, which we all love. I genuinely feel younger, healthier, and more vibrant every single day when I have this. If you are ready to take your longevity journey to the next level, you can visit novuslabs.com and use my discount code BiohackingBrittany for 10% off of your first month subscription of Novus Core. That's novuslabs.com with code BiohackingBrittany for 10% off your first month's subscription. Enjoy and let me know what you think.
Yeah.
Can you get a microbiome test for a dog?
Yeah, you can.
Oh, cool.
There are companies, I think there's a company called Animal Biome, and then there's another one, what's the name of it? Innovative Pet Lab. That's like a newer one. And they're pretty expensive though. I think they might start at like 150 and go all the way up to 300, depending on like what you want to get tested. But yeah, you can totally test. I haven't done it with my own dog yet. He seems to be in like really great shape. He's been eating raw for a while. We rescued him when he was 2 and he came to eating a really bad kibble. And I was immediately like, switching you to raw. But yeah, there are great studies coming out now too. I mean, nature has been telling us all along that this is best for dogs. I think there's a lot of science and what, nature has been showing us, but there are some great studies. There's a vet and a PhD named Dr. Anna Bjorkman and out of the University of Helsinki, and she is doing studies looking at the benefits of raw versus kibble. They've already discovered that dogs fed raw are metabolically healthier than dogs fed kibble, that dogs fed raw have a reduced likelihood of IBD and allergies as adults. Just released a study that said that feeding a puppy, even just 25% raw, dramatically reduces their likelihood of developing ear infections when they get older. So lots of great stuff coming out. Yeah.
I love that. Do you know anything about the sensitivity to chicken that a lot of dogs have?
Yeah, so that is supposedly chicken and beef are supposed to be the highest, or food sensitivity, I should say. Allergies are actually supposed to be quite rare. It's a food sensitivity. Now I don't know. I think you can get an allergy from eating the same thing like for too long, right? Like a lot of kibble companies want you to stay on their food for an entire lifetime, right? They're like, make you afraid to switch to anything else. And really, like the more variety, the better, which is why we offer in our frozen raw patties, we have 6 different recipes. We have chicken, beef, duck, lamb, venison, and turkey. So the more you can switch that up and like give them like the, wide variety of like spectrum of amino acids, the better. But there's also been talk, I don't know how true this is, that like there's sort of an over diagnosis of like chicken and beef sensitivities. Like, I don't know how the tests are being done, but it's definitely something we hear a lot. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Cause we, when we tried chicken with my dog, he had a lot of eye goop.
Okay.
And almost like he was reacting to it. And then we took the chicken away and then it stopped.
Oh, man.
But mind you, that was in his first like year of life. And we've kind of avoided it since then. But maybe this is something that we could look at again, assuming that the chicken is like high quality.
And is it all poultry or is it just the chicken?
It's just the chicken. Like we give him turkey and he's fine.
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of other protein sources too. Like you don't have to force it, but if you wanted to try adding it back in, I mean, people will come to us on kibble diets and think that their dog has a sensitivity to the protein when really this isn't your case because you were already feeding raw, but people that are feeding kibble, it's often one of the other biologically inappropriate ingredients in the food is like the grains or the fillers, and it's not the actual protein, which is probably pretty low, even though, the pet food company, they can use something called ingredient splitting, which is where they basically they divide up, like you can call corn a lot of different things, you can call rice a lot of different things. So by dividing it out, it sort of, it lowers them on the ingredient list and makes it look like the meat or the protein is higher on the ingredient list.
Oh.
It's like a very tricky thing that they do. But but I do think that we have seen people many times think that their dog has a protein allergy and then they switch to raw and like the allergy is not there for the protein. So it was something in
that makes sense. I can see that happening more often. Yeah, we do the same thing as like what you're recommending is like I try to rotate our proteins just so that the amino acid composition is different. Even for myself, like for my own diet, it's the same concept. So when you guys are creating your different lines and your different products, how do you choose what protein to pick? Because even last week I was in the pet store and there was like kangaroo that we could have gotten. And I was like, oh, he hasn't had kangaroo. Maybe that's something that we should try.
Yeah.
But like, how do you choose?
Well, we always want to have like a really nice variety, but it also comes down to like what's available and what, like for a while, like back when it was like after my sister had passed away, but we were still in Maine. We were manufacturing doing all of the manufacturing in the Maine facility. We had a lot more protein. We had a lot more of everything. It wasn't really scalable at that time. We were offering too many things, but we had buffalo, we had green tripe, we had rabbit. But like as you start to get bigger too, like rabbit, for example, was very hard to source in the US because there's not enough. We couldn't buy enough from there's only like these small rabbit farms. So like we couldn't get enough. So then we would have to we could only find it somewhere in China. So you really have to, our sourcing is based a lot on the supply. Like we have our lamb and our that come from New Zealand, which is like one of the cleanest, most amazing sort of places that pasture raised and grass fed. So we've really kind of stuck with the 6 that we have now because we trust the suppliers. It's a really high quality. We aren't against adding more, but we do for pet food companies. 6 is kind of a lot. Like you're starting to push it a little. Our freeze dried right now, because we just launched, we only have beef and chicken. So we might expand that selection more and maybe have some more quote unquote allergy friendly. So maybe if we can find a rabbit supplier from a supplier that we trust, or pork is another one that's supposed to be pretty allergy friendly. So we're open to adding more.
No, I feel like that makes a lot of sense. And it's also just like sourcing quality, like you said. You don't want to just take the cheapest route when the animals aren't fed great food or treated well. And then you're using that and then you're feeding your dog that. So it's like a whole process.
And beef, chicken, and turkey are still our most popular ones. Yeah. So even the ones that are it's like not the more novel proteins that actually sell the most. So
yeah, I can see that. I think it's like what people are more comfortable with too.
Totally.
Yeah, because like maybe it feels a little weird to be like, oh, this was a kangaroo. Here you go.
You know, we're not familiar with it at all. I know
Yeah,
it sounds a little weird to me. Or just
yeah,
like alligator meat I've seen or
yeah, yeah. Oh,
so,
there's so many. And actually, you were saying before we hopped on the show that Australia, speaking of kangaroos, is actually quite big on the raw dog food market.
yeah, they're definitely much more farther ahead than I think any other country right now.
Wow.
Definitely farther ahead than the US. We are as a raw food company, like I think the raw food market is $45 billion industry,
Mm,
and like raw and fresh as one category together is like makes up is 3 billion of that. So it's the fastest growing segment, but still just a small slice of
yeah,
this pie. That's a massive pie, but we are definitely a disruptor brand. We're definitely going up against the incumbents. Like we're definitely the weird, not mainstream. It's funny. I've been doing this for a long time, but even with some of the people I meet in my own life, like explaining to them, they're like, "Wait, what do you mean? It's just raw meat? Isn't that going to do
yeah,
this and this and this?" And I'm sure you encounter that too, being a raw feeder. Like
yeah.
people don't understand it, and so I mean, I love being part of this sort of disruptor brand.
Hmm.
It's great because we're doing something so good. It's really inspiring. There's so many people that are like want to join this movement. But it's hard too because you're constantly going up against this like pushback,
Yeah,
safety thing, like you're saying that we get a lot of pushback on. People think, and it's a hard when you're challenging indoctrinated beliefs. Like people don't, they get angry. They really, it's almost like this is a hotly debated topic, like pet food
yeah.
and feed your dog. It's almost like a religion, and people have their beliefs and they don't want you to even suggest that there could be another way. So yeah,
Oh, yeah. Oh,
yeah,
yeah. And if you say anything, people take it so personally, like you're criticizing them or blaming them,
yeah.
right? So,
It's true. We have that. I always say we have to be very careful. We're bold and we're not afraid to be bold. And like whenever you're challenging the status quo, you have to be willing to put yourself out there and really kind of like ruffle a few feathers. But at the same time, as much as we will like talk negatively about kibble all day long, we don't want to bash or shame kibble
yeah,
feeders because most pet owners love their dogs like family members, but we've been misled to think that ultra processed food and kibble is the only and best and safest option, right? So it's not that they don't want to do better for their dogs. It's just what how we've been marketed for so many years. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I learned a very long time ago when it comes to health is
Yeah.
to lead by example,
Yeah.
rather than me trying to like educate people or give advice or anything like that. Obviously, it's different. I don't run a raw food business, so it's a little different.
Yeah.
So even with like our dog, I don't really tell people, but people will notice or ask or like, "Oh, his hair is so soft
Yeah.
and shiny. Like, how'd you get it like that?" And then I'm like, "Well, he eats raw meat, and we add coconut oil on top every meal or every other meal, and I just explain it."
Yeah.
Yeah, because I
Or is
just
cracked already. You're not like I know my
yeah,
team and my husband even is like, okay, like I'll just like, have times where I'm just gonna bust through that door even though no one has invited me in and I'm gonna be like, let me tell you, like we're not the best. But I've sort of learned that you're right. It's like you kind of need like a little bit of like at least the door to be cracked somewhat, like
yeah,
willing to hear you. I am so passionate about it too that I'm just like I want to share it. I'm like, oh my God, like I'm always asking people like, what do you feed your dog? And then like I
yeah,
tell them. But I think that it can rub people the wrong way sometimes. And I do think we this is a funny example, but we did something not that long ago that was like a big statement on our social account that was like kibble is a convenience food, not a health food. And most of our followers were like really supportive and loved it. But there was a good chunk of people that were also like offended by it and thought it was like
mm,
elitist and it's
yeah,
kind of like, well, I don't know. Like someone said to me recently, like, so you pissed a few people off. Like, so what? Like it's kind of
yeah,
like, isn't that good? Like, I think that if you are disrupting a space and you are trying to change people's minds, you're going to piss people off and
yeah,
you're going to ruffle a few feathers. We don't want to make people feel bad. I think one of our approaches too is like it used to be a lot more severe and draconian, like around when my sister was starting it. It was much more all raw or nothing. Like kibble is going to kill your dog. Like if you put any in the bowl. And today we're we've really softened the approach. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
some raw is better than none. Like however you get fresh raw food into your dog's bowl, whether that's as a topper, as a mixer for
Yeah.
every other meal, we really want to support that. In fact, when you sign up for a meal plan on our site, you can choose 100% raw, which is what most people will choose. But then then they'll choose 50%. So you can feed half raw and half kibble or whatever else you're feeding to make it more affordable. If you have like a bunch of big dogs in the home, like it is a lot more expensive. So we do recognize that. We want to meet people where they are.
Mm-hmm.
I think we also try to educate though too that, this is an investment in long-term health. I mean, it's amazing that we're part of, I know you see this every day, but this amazing wellness revolution, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
people are thinking more about what they're putting in their bodies, and they are recognizing that proper whole foods nutrition is an investment in long-term health. And I think that's extending to our pets as well. And so we're really kind of like able to ride that wave, like what's happening in the human, food
Yeah.
industry. But we have a long way to go.
Yeah.
That said.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're spot on. There's always going to be haters,
Yeah.
always, right? And the fact that you have different options that can meet people where they're at for affordability, or even creating content online. Maybe, I don't know if you teach people also how to make their own raw food, or like maybe something they can do at home, is like, just start small. You don't have to do this massive switch,
Yeah.
and
It can
like,
be really intimidating. Yeah, you're right.
exactly.
Yeah, I think that's why we're like, but we're really trying, if you go to our Instagram account, it's very much like, I would say like more than half of the posts and reels are showing people mixing it with kibble or with something that's like, more mainstream or more affordable. So we're definitely, even more than ever, I would say, softening that approach. And even with freeze-dried raw is, people look at it and they're like, well, why does this cost the same as raw? And I'm like, because it's still raw, but it's not like our version of kibble. It's literally raw food in a shelf stable format.
Mm-hmm.
The freeze drying process is actually really quite expensive. So all freeze dried raw is pretty expensive. So it's on parity with our frozen raw. But most people feeding freeze dried raw are not feeding it 100% just because it gets to be, especially for a big dog who needs to eat like so much of it.
Yeah.
So we really try to be like, and it will make a difference. I mean, even doing 25% raw will make a meaningful difference in your dog's health. It's just like you or me eating, ultra processed food
Mm-hmm.
3 days a week. And then, the other 4 were, eating a whole foods diet. Like that's going to make a difference versus eating, ultra processed for every meal. So we just try to educate a lot on our social media, especially organic has been a big sort of channel for that.
Nice.
For us. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I actually converted my mom to raw dog food for her 8-year-old golden retriever. And she was just telling me earlier today, like she's so happy that she did, because she has noticed a difference in his weight. And his weight kind of stays at a healthier zone now and doesn't fluctuate as much. And especially as dogs get older too.
Yeah.
And we talk about like longevity, right? Like there's more issues that can kind of come up. And so she's like, I'm so grateful that I switched. And she doesn't do 100%. She does, I think, maybe let's say 50%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's,
she's noticing. Yeah.
Yeah. She still noticed a difference, and that's what works for her. So
Yeah. 50% you'll definitely notice a difference with 50%, but any percent you will it's going to improve your dog's health, longevity, all of the things. I do think that, we have to, once people, we have to sort of take them on this journey with us and be like,
Mhm.
okay, like, this is how you start. And this is how we have like a transition plan. So when people sign up for a meal plan, they get a starter box and it has like very clear instructions about how to transition over 10 days. And you're gradually mixing the old food with the new food until by day 10, they're eating 100% raw. But after the first week, people are seeing differences. Like first you see like the smaller, firmer, less smelly poop, right? Because the dog's absorbing more of the nutrients, and you very quickly see the shinier coat too. I think within like the first 2 weeks. Some of the other ones are like long, reduced allergies can take a little bit longer, but people are amazed by, if they're on the frozen raw patties because they're like 70% moisture. The dog is drinking so much less water because they're getting all of their moisture from the food, which people get scared. They're like, why is my dog not drinking any water? Like, don't worry, it's fine. They're getting it from the food.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's actually so true about the poop, because even when I walk my dog outside and you see poop that people haven't picked up and it's like huge,
I
I'm like,
know.
oh, that's kibble. Like,
Kibble poop. I
yeah,
know.
they absorbed like none of that and it just went right through them and there it is.
I know. When I lived in New York City, I lived there for a long time. It was like, the fun game to be like, oh, kibble poop,
Yeah.
raw fed poop. Because the raw fed dog poops are smaller, like
Yeah.
almost like they're just like, and they're easy. They should be easy to pick up, well formed. I mean, that's what poop is supposed to look like, right?
Mhm.
Kibble is like a big, messy.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned longevity for dogs' health, and I'm curious if you have anything other than raw food, maybe biohacks or things that you think can really make a difference for dogs long term.
Yeah, I mean, I think like our favorite saying, we sort of have this slogan at We Feed Raw, which is like, let dogs be dogs.
Mm.
Uh, it's not about anthropomorphizing dogs or personifying dogs. I think there's a lot of pet companies and even pet food companies today that are doing that. It's like, oh, they're so cute. And it's like, let me get them all these sweaters and like, all this, like, I saw something someone sent me on Instagram the other day and it had gotten so many views, but it was like this dog owner who she had a small, cute little dog and she had like spent like a ridiculous amount of money on like building the dog its own house in her apartment. But then at the end, she's like feeding kibble, and everyone's like, but why would you cheap
Yeah.
out on the food? And you're going to spend, I just think people don't understand. But I think letting dogs be dogs, right? So they're going on walks every day. They're getting to like sniff out in nature. Like that's a big thing for them. Letting that they need to be exercised, they need companionship, they need healthy food, they need fresh water. I think these are all just like basic essentials. I don't think we have to like overthink it. Now, are there other supplements and extras that we can add with dogs that have specific conditions? Yeah. I mean, I'm not an expert on that, but I'm obviously in this world. There's a great book that I talked about earlier by Dr. Karen Becker and Rodney Habib that's called The Forever Dog. There's amazing tips in there. I would
Nice.
recommend everyone read that because it goes from everything to like obviously food to environmental toxins that we might be like exposing our dogs to without realizing it. All of the households, cleaners and
Hmm.
fabrics that we don't even think. But yeah, she really dives deep into that.
Nice.
But I think like dogs really, we kind of are like, just forget the material extras. Like, we're not saying that that's can't be fun, but it's really for us and not the dog. Like,
Yeah.
dogs, they want to be dogs. They want to be
Hmm.
able to be outside in nature, have like enough time in nature. There's obviously certain breeds that, are much more outdoorsy than others, but I do think they all need that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I think it is a lot of the low hanging fruit that we can also do for ourselves. So, like watching plastic, like we use stainless steel bowls, like there's no plastic anywhere. We give him filtered water, and like my in laws make fun of us for giving our dog filtered water. It's like reverse osmosis filtered water. But at the end of the day, I don't want him drinking pharmaceuticals that are still in our tap
I know.
municipality
Why not?
water.
If you're doing it for yourself and you've already had that light bulb moment, like it's hard to like do it
Yeah.
for to not do it for your dog if you love your dog. Like,
Yeah.
I'm the same.
Yeah.
I give my dog also filtered water. That's
Yeah.
part of the process because that's what
Exactly.
you drink. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you already have it set up, like it doesn't take any longer, why would I give him the lesser choice?
I know.
Yeah. So I just think it's like those easy swaps of more of like non-toxic living that
Yeah.
can really make a difference for dogs' longevity.
100%. Yeah, totally. And I do think like the exercise component is
Yes.
huge because we are under exercising. People are under exercising themselves, but I
Yeah.
think for the dogs too, making sure they're getting, enough exercise throughout the day and also like mental stimulation.
Yeah.
There's ways to do that with, there's like these great like puzzle toys you can, I don't know if you use for your pup, but like, you
Hmm.
can food or even kibble and these like little Kongs where they have to
Yeah.
sort of work for it, or like the lick mats where they have to actually like it engages them and is mentally stimulating. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Is there a standard recommendation for exercise per day for a dog?
Um, yes, and I'm not sure. I think it's different for each breed,
Oh,
but
okay.
I would say like minimum probably a mile. Like, and it doesn't have to be all at once. Like, you're probably wanting to do, 20-minute walks, like at least twice a day, probably long. I mean, I try to do for my dog, a minimum of a mile on the weekdays when I'm like in a rush. He's a bigger dog, but I will do longer. I'll run with him on the weekends and some days during the week when I can. But I mean, really and exercise is so, so, so important. But you can't like out exercise a bad diet, just like not with humans either. So like really, I would say like starting with the right food is so key, Yeah. What do you guys do for your pup for exercise?
It depends. We recently moved and we recently had a baby, which
that's hard.
Definitely made it hard. Yeah. And then we're coming out of winter. These are all my excuses, by the way. But beforehand, we were doing about a 45-minute walk to an hour walk every morning. Yeah. And now baby's older. He can stay in the stroller longer. So we're coming into spring. So we'll probably kind of go back to that. Yeah. But over the winter, I would put him in like daycare, doggy daycare, which was like acres and acres of outdoor space.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah.
And he would come home so tired, so happy.
Yeah.
And just like sleep for 2 days after type of thing. Yeah. And that was when we were struggling to like get him out and get enough exercise. I was like, we need to make another plan here because he was just getting like frustrated in the house.
Yes. You can like sense, like, okay, I'm ready. I need some.
Exactly. So, but ideally, in the morning, so I get my morning sun, I get my steps in, at least half an hour, maybe to even an hour again is like where my golden zone is for him.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's
good. Yeah. So if people want to try your food, and I know you're only in the States, but for all the listeners in the States, how can they order some and how can they connect with you?
Yeah. Okay. So we are direct to consumer. So we ship everything directly to your house. We have, I think I mentioned this earlier, but it's very fast, efficient shipping. Yeah. It's all free cold shipping. So if you order our frozen raw plans, everything gets cold shipped for free with dry ice, shows up frozen to your door. You just take it out, stick it in your freezer. Yes. And then obviously the freeze dried is shelf stable, also just shows up straight to your door. They're both set up as meal plans. So you do sign up for a subscription, but it's not like some ironclad gym membership. You can like cancel, edit, pause. They're set up to be very flexible. And you can also choose 50% or 100%. You can change your proteins at any time. But it shows up to your door every, right before you run out of food from the previous box, a new box shows up. So you don't have to go to the pet food store.
Nice.
Be like a really kind of crappy experience for a lot of people. I don't really love going into pet food stores. It smells bad. There's a million choices. And so it's just a really great, easy.
Yeah. I love that. The subscription is so key. I mean, especially I just think we looked into it when we had our baby because we just needed to outsource it and I needed it to show up and me not to think about it. Yeah.
Totally. I know. And like we try to time it perfectly so you're not like, you don't have an excess, like you're really like have like 1 or 2 patties left in your freezer, for example, before the next box shows up. So it's just like, you're not like having to find more space. It works out really well. Most people really love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause not a lot of people have, or not everyone has like the deep freezers as well. Right. So like the freezer space can be an issue too. Yeah. Amazing. Okay. Well, I will link that in the show notes and on the website so everyone can find you easily. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I learned so much from you and this was great.
Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
Thanks for tuning in to Biohacking with Brittany. If you loved this episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone on their own wellness journey. Stay connected with me on Instagram at BiohackingBrittany for more on high performance health, non-toxic living, and the latest in biohacking. Until next time, keep striving for your healthiest, most vibrant self.